Welcome to the Nation ASEAN Plus. I'm NADIAH LATIF. Nearly 213 million young people are growing up in one of the world's most climate vulnerable regions. The ASEAN Children and Youth Climate Summit of 2025 places their voices at the center of climate governance. Joining us today are AHMAD FARID Mohammed, Undersecretary of the Climate Change Division at the Malaysia Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability, as well as JASMIN IRISHA Jim ILHAM, Climate and Environment Officer at UNICEF Malaysia. Welcome everyone. Hope the Friday has been good so far.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Great. Now we know that the ASEAN Climate Children and Youth Climate Summit 2025 is going to be a milestone for us, both in Malaysia and the region. But why exactly?
Okay, thank you for having us today. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. This summit actually is a milestone to place the children and also youth at the center of ASEAN climate agenda. And for Malaysia, this year we are the ASEAN chair, and at the same time also Malaysia hosts ASEAN Environment Minister meeting, and that's why at the same time also we have some impact when we're having this summit together with ASEAN Minister meeting. And for information also, Malaysia host the ASEAN Environment Minister. Last time we hosted last 30 years.
30 years ago?
Yeah, in 1990 actually, 35 years ago. So basically when we come back to Malaysia this year, we want something that impactful for the nation actually. So it is important to show that our regional leadership reflects the inclusivity and also intergeneration equity. By co-organizing this with UNICEF, we are not only amplifying our youth voice, but also institutionalizing them alongside the ministerial level discussion at ASEAN Minister meeting. And this set a precedent for ASEAN that climate policy must reflect the concern on also aspiration of the youth generation.
So what you're trying to tell me is this summit is co-organized, that's number one. And number two, you're telling me that the government is going to ensure that the voices of the youth are actually acted upon, not just didengari tapi tak ada aksi.
Yes,
is that correct?
Yeah,
all right. IRISHA, I've got a question for you. So Jasmine, UNICEF has long championed children's rights, right? We know this. It has been in Malaysia for many years now, especially in the climate space now. How does this summit actually reflect UNICEF's further commitment on not only empowering and enabling youth and children's voices, but also helping them to be able to be future policy shapers and change makers?
Thanks, Nadia, for the question. And thank you so much for having UNICEF Malaysia here on this session today. Just to hop off Encik Farid's point, we are now at a very critical juncture. The ASEAN Children and Youth Climate Summit is being organized at a very momentous time. It is happening in parallel with the ASEAN Ministerial Meeting on the Environment, but also within the timeline of a couple of months runway ahead of the Conference of Parties, the COP, of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And for the first time ever, UNICEF is having the summit in collaboration with NRES, but also with the support of Ministry of Youth and Sports, really bringing young people together across ASEAN. Young people aged 15 to 25 years old, close to 100 delegates will be there to convene at a common platform to discuss about their shared and common challenges, but also to unite when it comes to tackling climate action in a unified manner. And to answer your question, we recognize that climate crisis is a children's rights crisis, and UNICEF hopes to center the climate conversation discussions with children's rights at the center of it, really notifying that within the platform of addressing climate change, we must include children, young people within the conversations and also have them included in a formal policy making and decision making process in the lead up towards forming policies
I
as
want
well.
to jump on what you just said. You said that climate change or climate issues and climate rights is actually a children's rights. I believe it's a basic human right that cuts across. And very often children and young people are always seen as not part of the conversation because this is sort of conversations that are high above where policymakers stand. You said that it's going to be a collaboration between NRES as well as the Ministry of Youth and Sports. I'm interested to know what kind of collaboration that's going to be. How is the Ministry of Youth and NRES working together on this? Anyone thoughts?
Perhaps I can take it first and Encik Farid can jump in. I think when we discuss about the conversations around climate change, many will see it as a purview under the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability. But in fact, the lived reality of young children's lives when it comes to facing the brunt of the climate crisis, when it comes in the face of disasters, it really is not just a matter of reality, but also a life and death situation itself. And when we come to really addressing the issue of young people, we really need to look at it from a multifaceted perspective, but also from a rights perspective of children and young people. And this is where platforms such as the summit is really important. But also I want to highlight that there are a couple of initiatives that we have been ongoing, such as the Youth Cluster and the NRES, which really convenes young people across Malaysia to provide a space for young people to provide inputs towards these processes as well.
Interesting, because when you were talking about, the whole gamut of things that we need to look at, I was just sort of looking at what are some of the issues that are facing children and young people, specifically in Malaysia. And we know now that approximately 7.2 million children in Malaysia are now experiencing heat waves, twice as many as their parents and perhaps their grandparents as compared to the 1960s. And these conditions, of course, we know pose so many different health risks, from heat wave stress, heat-related illnesses, disruption in education. We've seen disruption in education several times now, including other vulnerabilities, including dengue, infectious diseases, neurodevelopmental, mental health consequences, etc. So there's a whole host of things that actually is going to be the impact of climate change if we have not figured out how to adapt and mitigate properly. So kudos to all of the parties involved for ensuring this is happening. Now, Cik Farid, Jasmine mentioned that there's going to be 100 delegates across. What is the sort of representation that we're looking at? You said the age group, but I'm interested to know who in that 100 delegates, what do they represent? Which groups are they representing?
All right. Okay. I was told that the range of the youth, it between 15 and also until 20-something lah, very early age of the youth. So it's covered from the all AMS country, and I was told that there are almost 100 plus delegate come from all the AMS, Asean member state. And for Malaysia itself, I think we have nominated, 20 youth from various background to attend that session. So basically, when we organize this session, it seemed that we want to bring to them to leadership, to the leaders, to the minister itself. So we want to have a close relationship between the youth and also the environment ministers. So I give you an example. When we were children that time, we don't even have opportunity to meet the minister whatsoever. But now with this platform, so we already prepare a platform for them actually to meet the ministers. So can you imagine that at the age of 15, 16, you are able to talk directly to your minister. And also the youth also, which is come from maybe from Philippines, Indonesia, so they also come fly all the way. Maybe they are not have the experience to travel also. This is also an opportunity for them also to meet the minister at the other country's place.
Right.
And we are honoured to host it in Langkawi, the beautiful island of Malaysia.
Oh, it's going to be Langkawi.
Yes.
Right. And I think one of the things that I've seen over the years, and working actually very closely with UNICEF, I know that you have been at the forefront of really enabling children's voices. And when you do say that 20 Malaysian youths are going to be represented, I do hope that it's going to be cut across Orang Asli, Orang Asal, persons with disability, refugees, undocumented stateless. This has been the game plan for UNICEF. Is this what you're looking at as well this year?
Yes, we make sure that the selection process is inclusive. So for us to select the close to 100 young people was very, very challenging.
Can imagine.
We received so many very impressive applications. It was an open selection process and we vetted through them. It's highly competitive. And we've also had nominees. We work together closely with our UNICEF regional office in the East and Asia Pacific regional office. And those country offices also put forward nominees of young people within their countries where they have been working closely with. And I'm very excited because the main output from the summit is also to bring together insights from young people across the region and to encapsulate it into a declaration. So this will be the Children and Youth Climate Declaration, which will be then be presented at an intervention session at the AMME. So this is a chance for young people to also really elevate and amplify their voices, concerns, issues and recommendations to the ministers, their environmental ministers who will be present during the AMME.
And I have to say, I mean, children today have a lot more opportunity to engage policymakers than I believe in the 1960s.
It's true.
Not only are they using social media to be talking, in fact, even our policymakers are on social media now, right? So the gap between people and policymakers are a lot better now. Now, I want to ask both of you, what do you think are the biggest challenges that are climate-related facing children in ASEAN right now? I know of some, but could you, expand on what are some of the key issues?
All right. When we talk about the climate risk for the youth, it's normal one is related to the public related health, because we know that the threat for the climate, actually there are many. So one related to the bigger one, of course, like water resources or not, the rain, and also not enough water or whatnot. But for the children, one of the biggest challenge actually just like now, if the heat wave happen.
Yes.
Heat wave is something that sometimes we don't know the how the body can tolerate. So the children, they are really exposed to that heat wave, because currently we are quite frequent to experience the heat wave, where the temperature go up more than 35 degrees for a few days.
Yes.
Then we are experiencing
longer heat waves now.
Yes,
definitely.
now that is one. And then the secondly is when during the we call that wet season. We have a lot of rain. So they are also happening that a lot of diseases related to waterborne diseases, just like leptospirosis,
yes, leptospirosis.
This is one of the threat that we not really realize, and also dengue during the hot season, because during the hot season, the population of the Aedes mosquito is increasing fast. This
Definitely.
is the base of the research. So this is basically what I foresee from the research done when we work together with Ministry of Health, because I'm developing the Malaysian National Adaptation Plan, MyNAP. So these are one of the focus areas for us.
MyNAP. What does MyNAP stand for?
MyNAP. My stand for Malaysia, and NAP is National Adaptation Plan.
Okay.
Even this morning also, actually, we discussed about the new NDC for Malaysia.
Right.
Another term, NDC. Actually,
Malaysia is filled with acronyms.
Yes, yeah. Actually, especially on climate change.
Yes.
So NDC also will provide some information about the adaptation, and of course, we also have some topic about the use also have been spelled out inside that. Let's forget about that. But coming back to the threat for the youth, of course, those who stay like outside the rural areas.
Yes.
So basically, sometimes the information for them is not so close with them. So when we experience the heat wave whatsoever, sometimes they don't realize. Children, like small kids, sometimes they don't realize. When I was small also, so we just go and play without
you don't realize what's actually
what
happening.
happened. As far as they know rain, they can play. So that's the thing. When sometimes they could become exhausted, not in the water. So these are the things that can treat
some of the key challenges. Right, Jasmine, what about you? Because I know that UNICEF also works at the forefront of children who are stateless, undocumented refugees. So these are actually even more vulnerable. They don't have social structures and systems the way nationals do in ensuring that they're not as climate vulnerable as the rest. So what are some of the key, perhaps, blind spots that you're seeing in ASEAN, especially for children and youth, in terms of climate risks?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Nadia. I think just to kind of make it broader, ASEAN children and young people in ASEAN are at the front line of climate crisis. According to a UNICEF report, about 41% of children in the region face 5 or more overlapping climate and environmental shocks, nearly triple of the global average. So how do we then transform or translate the conversations around climate challenges into meaningful solutions? And I just wanted to echo on Encik Farid's point earlier regarding the consultations that we've been having, particularly for the nationally determined contributions, which is essentially our national commitments, our national pledge that we'll be submitting to the UNFCCC. So towards the end of last year, together with NRES, UNICEF have conducted a series of consultations, national consultations, about 15 sessions throughout the states in Malaysia, reaching about more than 350 young people to really deep dive what it means for a young person when they're being impacted by the climate crisis. So, Encik Farid, as you rightfully mentioned, children sometimes they are not sure what it means. When we talk to them about climate change, it's such a big word, and even in this session alone, we have so many jargons being thrown around. But when we break it down and ask them, have they experienced really heavy rainfalls before? Have they been affected by floodings? So when you break it down into the disasters that they have experienced in the near term, they said yes, and they have been affected in various ways. You mentioned public health. So when we interviewed young people, they said that when it comes, when flooding happens, one of the young person has shared with us that she was stranded in her asrama or her dorms, not being able to go out or even to attend classes. Hence, your example earlier on learning loss,
yes,
because they are unable to go to school or to their university to obtain education. Or when heat waves happens outside, when the weather is really, really hot, some of them mentioned that it becomes very uncomfortable to them because it triggers their eczema.
Correct.
And it's very, very irritating. Or when the recent haze has happened, some of them have shared that they are facing difficulty in terms of breathing because of their asthma. So all this have physical implications on children and young people. Not only that, to a certain extent, it also affects their mental health.
Definitely.
A lot of young people have expressed that all the changes with what's happening with the global crisis have, resulted in climate anxiety or climate grief, as they mentioned. And this really, really affects their day-to-day because they're thinking, oh my gosh, there's so many things that happens in the world. What am I, as an individual, is supposed to do about this? So when UNICEF ran a survey, the National Youth Climate Change Survey, together with UNDP and Equinites back in 2020, we found out that 92% of young people really acknowledge that climate crisis is happening. 9 and 10 out of them have experienced extreme weather effects, but a large proportion of them has also indicated that they are taking urgency and agency when it comes to tackling the climate crisis.
I think the challenge between urgency and agency is whether there is the same urgency and agency intergenerationally. And that's why I wanted to ask you a little bit about that, because prior to this, I think that term climate anxiety was not something that was bantered around as much as we're hearing now. And clearly, because of the changes that we have seen and the climatic erraticness that we're seeing not only in ASEAN but across the world. In fact, just a few weeks ago or just a few days ago, we had an earthquake in Johor, which is unheard of. We're not even in the ring of fire. So obviously the whole tectonic plate is already moving. We're shifting. The ground is literally moving as we speak. So when we're talking about intergenerational collaboration, I think there is a critical need to ensure that the voices of the wise meet the voices of the young, because they're not only the stewards of the future, they are our present today. And a lot of the things that perhaps we are discussing 50,000 feet above sea level are things that they are facing day to day. Jasmine, you mentioned that children have eczema, etc. I work with people with very complex medical needs. And for them, climate change or just 1 degree temperature change actually can be a situation of life and death. So a lot of these nuances are usually not brought to the fore. Now, I know last year you had a youth climate forum or youth climate adaptation forum. How different is that from the one that you're having this year? FARID.
Okay, maybe I can take this. Yeah, I can take this. We're working closely together on both the Youth Climate Adaptation Forum as well as the ASEAN Children and Youth Climate Summit. And the main difference is that previously it was on a national platform. We were really benefiting children of Malaysia, but the current summit that we are organizing on the 2nd to 4th of September is within the ASEAN context. And I must say that Malaysia, as a chair of ASEAN, is really showcasing its leadership in really addressing the climate change narrative in terms of having the conversations inclusive of children and young people. I would also like to address your question on intergenerational perspective, because I really feel that's super important. I think a lot of things that we've been hearing so far is that young people have to do this, young people have to do that. But the fact of the matter is that we inherited the challenges that was being being done by previous generations. So how can we expect young people to step up? Definitely. A lot of young people already feel burdened with the weight on their shoulders because they are facing this on their day-to-day basis. And I think one way to look at it is to also really I like the term that you use, the wise and the young, bringing the wise and the young together at a common platform, because it's also very important to not just really put the responsibilities on the shoulders of the young people, but also having allies with adults, people in policy-making spaces, people in leadership positions to come together and really to advocate for the common issue together.
Yeah, and I think what we are going to have to see moving forward is not so much about them and us, but more of an ecosystem that's being built across the board, across the different multi-stakeholders. I want to ask the both of you, but I want to start with Cik Farid first.
Okay.
Jasmine said, basically, if I were to sum up what you said, there are rights, and with rights come responsibility, and with that responsibility will come accountability for action and not just talk, right? And we are really looking at this summit to be a forum where actions become real and not just symbolic. So can you share some inspiring examples of perhaps some youth-led initiatives in ASEAN that you feel already reflect, the ACYS 2025 hopes and what it plans to amplify?
So, one of the deliverable under the DEX use ACYCS.
Yeah, so ASEAN
Children
and Youth Climate Summit. Yeah, I know.
It's a very long name. So basically, one of the deliverable actually they are not just the discussion,
right?
But they also will have a declaration. So that means when they just discuss, it's not only leave it in the room.
Yes.
But they also will convey this also to the ministers. So that
across ASEAN.
Yeah. Basically, first they will deliver the declaration to the chair of ASEAN Environment Minister, which is currently will be Dato' Johari, the acting minister for the Ministry of Natural Resources, and also they also will present at their ministers, respective minister.
Right.
So that means when they discuss it, so they hope that declaration will be heard by the ministers. So that means they have the chance to deliver whatever voice that they discuss inside the meeting room. So that maybe with the hope that maybe if not now, maybe another 5 or 10 years, the proposal can be implemented.
Okay, Jasmine, I'm going to play devil's advocate here because we've seen ASEAN declarations before, but very often these declarations don't necessarily have a timeline or a deadline as to when some of these things need to be addressed. And I can name quite a number of our ASEAN declarations without a deadline, right? So the ASEAN Children and Youth Climate Declaration, which is also going to be another mouthful very soon, what are you hoping to see out of that declaration, and how are we going to be looking at these diverse set of voices of children to be consolidated into a unified call to action?
Yeah, NADIAH, actually you were just expressing the questions I had in my head out loud, because when we were really designing this process of the declaration, we were also really putting forward the big question of how do we make this process inclusive? How do we make this process meaningful and not just another declaration that people churn out at the end of the summit, right? And again, when we were designing the process, we really want to make sure that the declaration task force that is being set up in the beginning before the summit will comprise of one young person from each of the ASEAN member states. So there is equal representation at the get-go during the drafting process. And when the summit happens, we will then present the basis of the framework, the foundational text of the declaration for inclusive consultation of all of the young persons that will be attending the summit. Then at the end of the summit, these 10 young persons who are involved in the drafting process and leading the whole declaration up to the consultation will be presenting it at the intervention session at the AMME. The difference between this declaration and previous declaration is that for the first time ever, the AMME will have a special dedicated slot for children and young people to be within the closed-door meeting room to be presenting this to all of the environment ministers, including the ASEAN chair. So hopefully that carries a little bit more weight. And what we hope to see is that this process is not just a one-off process, is that for it to be continuous the next ASEAN chairs as well. So hopefully these are the kind of take-home message on how do we really see the declaration turning into action.
Wonderful. And when you talk about it, you said declaration, task force, presentation, inclusive consultation, of course, delivery at the end. All that to be achieved in just a few days. So good luck to the both of you. That sounds like quite a task, but we are excited to see how this is going to turn out. Now, we know that 99% of children in Southeast Asia already are exposed to climate hazards, and this summit is an urgent matter, not just symbolic. So the voices of ASEAN youth will be vital in shaping climate resilience future for the region. And for more updates on ASEAN development, visit the ASEAN page on bernama.com. I'm NADIAH, LATIF, and this has been The Nation ASEAN Plus. Thanks for watching.
Dunia sekarang ada pelbagai jenis manusia. Tak semua orang baik dengan kita. Ada juga yang suka menyamar. Mereka ini datang dari setiap penjuru untuk merampas sesuatu yang berharga, identiti kita. Jadi, kita mesti bersedia. Protokol keselamatan My Digital ID diiktiraf di peringkat antarabangsa untuk teknologi keselamatan digital. Barulah identiti kita selamat. Elakkan penipuan dan penyamaran identiti digital dengan My Digital ID. Selamat, pantas, mudah.